Late at night on June 20, 2023, in Terumi Ward, Kobe City, Japan, an elderly woman was seen desperately fleeing in her wheelchair down the street. A kind passerby, noticing her distressed state, immediately called the police. Surprisingly, as the investigation deepened, the case took increasingly bizarre turns. Police discovered the woman had fled because she was being abused by her 4 adult children. The shocking opportunity for her escape came when her children left home to dispose of a body.
Even more horrifying was the revelation that the body they were disposing of belonged to none other than the 6-year-old son of the eldest daughter.
At 11 p.m. on June 20, 2023, an elderly woman in a wheelchair appeared on the streets of Terumi Ward, Kobe City. Her face was filled with panic, she had no family around her, and her belongings were scattered across the ground. A man passing by thought she was lost and approached to ask if she needed help.
Under the dim streetlights, he noticed the dark circles under her eyes and the unusual muddy brown color of her irises, signs that suggested she had been beaten.
He immediately called the police. When officers arrived, the woman introduced herself as Yumiko Hosoka and explained that she was wandering the streets late at night because she had fled her home after enduring long-term domestic abuse. The police decided to investigate her residence. Yumiko's home was located in Kobe's Nishi Ward, about 7 kilometers from where she was found. The 3-bedroom duplex apartment cost only 60,000 yen per month in rent. Aside from Yumiko, the apartment was shared by her 4 children and her grandson, 34-year-old eldest daughter Saki Hosoka, 32-year-old Daichi Hosoka, 30-year-old twins Asami and Asaka Hosoka, and Saki's 6-year-old son, Shu Hosoka. Yumiko's eldest son, Takashi Hosoka, had long since cut ties with the family and did not live with them. Despite the large household, the apartment was empty when police arrived. Officers began questioning Yumiko, who revealed more disturbing details. She told police that since March of that year, her children had been intermittently locking her in a closet on the first floor. While they allowed her to eat and use the bathroom, verbal and physical abuse were routine. A medical examination confirmed her claims. Subconjunctival hemorrhaging in her left eye and multiple bruises on her back proved she had suffered prolonged violence. With this evidence, Yumiko's 4 children were charged with unlawful confinement and elder abuse, and tracking them down became the police's top priority. Investigators quickly reviewed surveillance footage and found a lead. On the afternoon of June 22, the 4 siblings were spotted in Kobe's Sanemiya shopping district. Police rushed to the scene and arrested them. However, after the arrests, officers realized that Saki's 6-year-old son, Shu, was missing. When questioned, Saki gave a horrifying answer. She and her siblings had beaten the unconscious child, stuffed him into a suitcase, and abandoned him in a grassy field. This revelation took the case to an even darker level. The 4 siblings were not only guilty of abusing their mother but also of murdering a child. Shocked, police had Saki lead them to the dumping site. In a remote grassy area, they found a discarded suitcase emitting a foul odor. Inside was Shu's body, already decomposing in the summer heat. The little boy, who had just celebrated his 6th birthday, had his life cut short in the most tragic way. An autopsy later confirmed that Shu died from traumatic shock, with subcutaneous hemorrhaging covering his entire back, evidence of long-term abuse. Meanwhile, police reviewed surveillance footage from June 19, the day the siblings disposed of Shu's body. At around 5 p.m., despite temperatures exceeding 30 degrees Celsius, the 4 were seen wearing long sleeves, hoodies, and sunglasses. Walking in pairs, they casually strolled down the street, one dragging the suitcase behind them while the other fanned them. They chatted and laughed as if without a care in the world. No one could have guessed that the suitcase contained the body of their own nephew. The siblings' cruelty sent chills down the spines of many. People couldn't help but wonder, what could drive them to such madness? Finally, a longtime acquaintance of the family shed some light during an interview. To them, this kind of abuse was just normal family behavior. The only real victim here is little Shu, who got caught up in it and died. The statement was loaded with implications. If Shu was the only one who deserved sympathy, what did that say about Yumiko's suffering? The informant summed up Yumiko's fate in one word: karma. But what had Yumiko done to her children to make people believe she deserved no pity? The answer lay in events from nearly 30 years ago, when these siblings were still children themselves. When the four Hosoka siblings were children, their family lived in an apartment building in Terumi Ward, Kobe. According to neighbors, the Hosoka household was notorious as a problem family, where the 5 children were routinely neglected and abused. At home, Yumiko not only failed to care for her children but also forced them to handle all household responsibilities. One former neighbor recalled seeing the children dragging heavy garbage bags to the disposal area, leaving trails of food waste on the stairs and hallway, prompting complaints that the kids themselves had to apologize for. If it were just household chores, it might have been bearable. But Yumiko couldn't even provide basic necessities. A parent of one of Saki's elementary school classmates remembered the children vividly. Their clothes were always tattered, unchanged for days. Even in winter, they went to school without socks. Their own home didn't feed them, so whenever there was leftover food at school, they would stuff it into their backpacks to take home. Beyond neglect, the children endured something far worse: violence. The eldest 3 suffered the most, their bodies perpetually marked with wounds and bruises. The eldest son, Takashi, once had his head split open by a metal pipe. Saki, the eldest daughter, was frequently burned with cigarettes. Daichi, the second son, often had arms covered in injuries. The perpetrators weren't just family members, they were also the various men Yumiko brought home. In her younger years, Yumiko frequently entertained different men, which was why the children never knew their real father. All they knew was that each new stranger in the house meant another wave of torment. For them, the darkness seemed endless: an absent father, a neglectful mother, and a parade of men who brought nothing but pain. In this environment, Takashi focused solely on escape. Saki, despite her own suffering, shouldered the household burdens, caring for her siblings from elementary school onward. Daichi, however, inherited the cycle of violence. Raised in brutality, Daichi became a violent child himself. By elementary school, he was infamous for his outbursts, kicking, throwing rocks, and once chasing a classmate so relentlessly that the girl fell down the stairs in terror. After the incident, neither Yumiko nor Daichi apologized. 3 months later, only after the teacher's insistence, did Yumiko visit the victim's family. She handed them a cheap box of cookies, muttered, "Take this. My child was wrong," and left. The family never forgot the insult. As the siblings grew older, some managed to leave. Takashi cut ties completely. Daichi also fled. But the girls weren't as fortunate. Their chaotic upbringing left them ill-equipped for independence. Saki, for instance, had mild intellectual disabilities. After graduating from a special needs high school, she worked factory assembly lines before becoming a hostess. There, she fell for a male host and became pregnant with Shu. When she realized she was expecting, she returned to Yumiko's home, moving back in with her mother and the twins, Asami and Asaka. Unlike their older siblings, the youngest twins had suffered relatively less abuse and never left home, staying to care for Yumiko, whose legs had grown weak. With no one employed, the family survived on 350,000 yen in monthly government aid. Though poor, the household was peaceful for a time. The daughters harbored no resentment, tending to their mother dutifully. In June 2017, Saki gave birth to Shu, becoming a single mother. From infancy, Shu was placed in daycare. Having never known maternal care herself, Saki treated him more like a pet than a child. Neighbors often saw her walking Shu on a dog leash or tying him to a pole at the bus stop for daycare staff to collect. In this household, though relationships were strained and behaviors odd, life carried on, until Daichi returned after separating from his wife. His arrival would change everything. As mentioned earlier, Daichi Hosoka had left home as a young man and married a woman 20 years his senior. For a while, he lived comfortably off her income, until their marriage collapsed under the weight of his violent abuse after just over a year. By late 2022, amid divorce proceedings and homeless, Daichi returned to Yumiko's household. Almost immediately, his vicious nature resurfaced, and he established himself as the new tyrant of the family. Mirroring the same cycle of abuse Yumiko had once inflicted on her children. Having been absent for over a decade, neighbors initially mistook Daichi for Saki's new boyfriend, given how often they walked hand in hand. But soon, shouts and the sisters' pledges of loyalty to him echoed from the Hosoka apartment. The family dynamic grew increasingly bizarre, alternating between violent outbursts and disturbingly close-knit outings. While Daichi's relationship with his sisters remained strangely intimate, Shu's life took a nightmarish turn. The neglect and violence Yumiko had subjected her children to now played out anew, with Shu as the victim. After Daichi moved in, neighbors regularly heard the boy's screams and the sickening thuds of blunt force. Some even witnessed Shu crying for help from the balcony. Yet no one intervened, fearing retaliation. Left at the mercy of his family and the indifference of bystanders, Shu was plunged into unimaginable suffering. By February 2023, daycare teachers noticed Shu's frequent absences but assumed he was simply unwell. Then, on April 20th, bruises on his buttocks and left shoulder raised alarms. Staff reported their concerns to child services, but during the ensuing home visit, Yumiko and Saki claimed ignorance about the injuries. On May 1st, Saki requested temporary foster care for Shu, citing his violence toward grandma. Yet when the scheduled handover arrived, only Daichi appeared, dismissing the need for intervention. A final attempt on June 1st saw Yumiko refusing to let officials speak with Shu, insisting the family would care for him. 2 weeks later, Shu celebrated his 6th birthday and was murdered shortly after. The horrors of this family, festering for 30 years, only came to light when Yumiko escaped. Media tracked down Takashi, the eldest son who'd severed all ties. Asked about his family, he stiffened, replying, "I don't want to remember any of it." As investigations continue, prosecutors believe Daichi orchestrated the crimes with his sister's compliance. All will face justice, but nothing will bring Shu back. His life, cut short, became the final casualty of this generational cycle of abuse. This tragedy forces a grim reflection. Yumiko's failures as a parent validate the saying, "Not everyone deserves to be one." And while the siblings' suffering explains their cruelty, it never excuses what they did to Shu. By inflicting their past torment on an innocent child, they ensured the cycle would never end.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this case, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow Case Diaries. There are plenty more cases coming your way. Got thoughts on today's story? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. See you in the next one.